What's up guys and welcome back to the channel. The EV market is really heating up in the past few weeks and looks to have a huge future. And despite renewed interest in this sector, it seems like the potential of the GGPI Polestar merger is still flying under the radar for many investors. So today I want to talk about some articles that I've come across this weekend, including a blog I read discussing a potential gamma squeeze, which is very interesting. If you've been watching the channel over the past few months, you'll have seen the huge gains that we made recently, gaining as much as 10x on some stocks. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button now and stop missing out on these huge money making stocks. Turn on notifications and find out about these as soon as I make a video instead of finding my videos after the stocks have had their gains. It costs you nothing, but it could make you a lot of money. This is not financial advice and I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Now let's dive into it with a quick overview of the company and then on to the latest news. Polestar is a global pure play premium electric vehicle company based in Sweden with a mission to produce progressive electric performance cars designed and engineered without compromise. They say that they are design focused electric performance car brand harnessing refined performance and cutting edge technology. Determined to improve the society we live in by accelerating the change to fully electric, climate neutral future, they are trying to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions while leading development of new technologies. The company was originally founded in 1996 as a racing company and developed a partnership with Volvo before being acquired by the Volvo Group in 2015. They announced their Polestar 1 in 2017 and Polestar 2 in 2019. In 2019 they opened their Polestar production facility and by 2020 were making their first sales. As of 2021, the company is operating in select countries across Europe and the United States and Canada, but are planning major expansion over the next 2 years across Europe, Asia and the Middle East. I have just come across this article. This was written earlier this week. GGPI stock could rise more after the Polestar merger date in 2022. Over the last year, several startup EV companies have gone public through a SPAC reverse merger. The startup EV companies include success stories like Lucid Motor, which was arguably the most hyped merger of 2021. Which is true. At one point it felt like everyone just to talk about Lucid. Perhaps due to some countries still being in lockdowns at the beginning of this year, but the massive hype around this caused Lucid to gain over 500% in just a few weeks. On the other end of the spectrum we have Lordstown Motors, which has fallen over 50% from its SPAC IPO price and it's now a penny stock. Now this is a very similar story, but a very different outcome. Lordstown Motors gained over 300% but has since lost about 90% of its value. Lordstown Motors was another stock that I felt anyone with a camera was talking about. But there was other examples too, such as Nikola and Hyliion Holdings. The list really does go on. Now GGPI will merge with Polestar in the first half of 2022. GGPI hasn't announced a definitive merger date yet, but the two companies expect to complete the business combination in the first half of 2022. After the merger, the combined entity will be renamed Polestar Automotive Holdings UK and the ticker will change to PSNY. While SPACs did spend most of 2021 being beat down heavily, that has changed over the past 2 months. We have seen Lucid, which had dropped below $20, gain over 200% and reach back to its high from earlier this year. But we have also had a stellar response to Rivian's recent IPO. While Rivian stock opened at about $80, it ran to nearly $180 in just a few days, which reminded me of the insane hype that we seen at the beginning of the year surrounding Lucid. This has now dropped back a bit, but is still far above its IPO price and well above $100 too. In most cases, SPAC stocks see an upside after the merger is approved. Also, once the merger is completed and the merged entity starts trading, we usually see momentum. It isn't certain that GGPI will go up after the merger completion and a lot will depend on the EV market sentiments. I feel that the way the market is right now with positive sentiment towards EV companies, then if GGPI was to complete its merger soon, then this would skyrocket. But I still think that unless there is a seismic change in the market, Polestar looks set to make big gains anyways. The upside in Polestar stock will depend on execution. Looking at the EV markets, investors have been willing to pay a premium for quality EV companies that are executing well. Lucid stock surged when it started deliveries. Similarly, Rivian has also started deliveries of its vehicles. Even Tesla, once production and sales started to really take off only about 2 years ago, it is then that the share price began to rocket up, gaining roughly 2,500% since October 2019. Looking at other startup EV companies, Lordstown stock has tumbled after the company faltered on execution and delayed the delivery timeline to the third quarter of 2022, which was a year behind schedule. In contrast, Canoo brought forward the delivery timeline to the fourth quarter of 2022, which led to a spike in the stock. This is where Polestar stands out compared to other startup EV companies. Polestar has already 2 models under production and expects to launch more models by 2025. The company expects its deliveries to rise 29-fold between 2020 and 2025 and reach 290,000 units. Similarly, its revenues are expected to rise to 17.8 billion in 2025. Now, let's not forget that unlike a lot of startup EV companies, Polestar are basing their projections based upon the production and sales capacity of the company that is already producing and selling cars. The demand is already there, it is just a question of scaling up production to meet that demand. Most EV startups have never sold any cars that base their projections around their concept and what is ultimately an opinion of what is possible. Polestar are light years ahead of that right now. It is literally just about getting the production capacity scaled up to meet demand that is already there. Guys, if you're new to the channel, hit that juicy subscribe button and stay up to date. If you find any value in my videos or value my opinion on any stocks that I cover on the channel, then please smash that like button and leave a comment. I cannot stress how important your likes and comments are to a small channel like this. Polestar looks undervalued compared to Lucid and Rivian. Based on current GGPI stock price, we get a pro forma market cap of around $28 billion, which is far below what Rivian and Lucid Motors are currently commanding. Looking at the comparatively low valuations, Polestar looks like a good EV stock to buy ahead of the merger. The backing from Volvo would add value to Polestar. While a lot of EV companies, including Tesla, have struggled with production at times, support from a seasoned automotive producer would help Polestar's execution risk. Successful production and deliveries could take the stock much higher than current levels. And let's not forget that Polestar is not just backed by Volvo, but also Geely Automotive. The Geely Group sold over 2.4 million cars in 2020, so production nearly certainly won't be a problem. Polestar is also backed by Hollywood actor Leonardo DiCaprio. The actor is a long-time environmental activist with a focus on climate change. But Polestar also have other plays. Not just purely the car manufacturing side of the business, Polestar could be looking to supply powertrains to other automakers. Polestar could become a provider of premium EVs as well as powerful and sophisticated powertrains. As well as developing a 603 horsepower electric motor, they are working on an 800 volt bidirectional battery pack. In the next 3 years, they will launch 3 new vehicles, including the P3. Now, this article is from October, so it is slightly dated. The idea behind sharing powertrains is simple. It will help Polestar recoup some of its R&D investment dollars. This new P10 electric motor is said to develop 603 horsepower and is fed by an 800 volt battery pack. On the future P3, when combined with a front motor, the total system output could be as much as 872 horsepower. According to Polestar CEO, a top-of-the-line powertrain is simply part of our performance brand. There isn't any electric motor with that power density on the market yet for mass-produced cars. The P10 will not initially be offered with the P3, but this is a highlight that we will save for a little later. Now, something that I love to see in any company that I invest in is a high level of institutional investors. Whether that is the likes of BlackRock or ARK Invest or even Warren Buffett. This can be important depending on each company, but in general, these guys are the professionals when it comes to investing, and their opinions should definitely be noted. Right now, GGPI has total institutional ownership of 72.98%, valuing at over $791 million. A total of 118 institutions own GGPI, with recent activity seeing a net increase of around 23 million shares. I just came across this blog this morning. GGPI gamma squeeze potential increases as meme stock status rises. They say never to trust an anonymous blogger on the internet, and this is from an anonymous blogger who has their reasons for remaining anonymous and says that those reasons don't matter. All they are asking is to debate the content, not who they are or their motivations. Now, just to be clear, I did not write this, but I did find this interesting, and the author gives express permission here for their work to be shared, so I thought I would show it to you guys. I will also put a link in the description for anyone who wants to take a full read of this. But to be clear, I do not recommend that anyone would ever blindly invest upon the opinions of any blogger or YouTuber. It's extremely important that everybody does their due diligence and a lot of research before investing in anything. So with that in mind, we already know the bull case. So we've got a price target of $35, expectation to deliver 29,000 units. This compares very well with rivals, and the market cap sits at a fraction of the likes of Rivian and Lucid. The reasons for being long are quite apparent, but the focus here is going to be on the gamma squeeze potential of GGPI through increased demand of call options, especially as the merger date nears. Then there is screenshots here of call options for December and January on Yahoo Finance. Volume has been robust over the past several days, and open interest has increased for calls. Despite the stock price remaining steady, the OTM calls have dropped in price as the implied volatility has decreased. This is an ideal time to buy calls as they are now cheaper, while the fundamentals driving a potential squeeze improves. Then there is listed here the numbers of the call options at $10, $12, $15, $17.50 and what this represents. I don't want to waste time reading this, as I've put the link in the description, so check this out if this is of interest to you. In conclusion, once the merger takes place, Polestar will have over 2 billion shares outstanding. This is a consideration for long-term valuation, but for the near-term squeeze potential, all we care about is the current number of GGPI shares outstanding. Out of 80 million shares, already 16.5 million of them are allocated for delta neutral in the money call option hedges for all expiries between December and GGPI is a benefactor of having a very big story packed into a relatively small float into a SPAC. However, GGPI is receiving a disproportionate amount of interest in call options right now because of this story. In a normal IPO world, Polestar would have nearly 2 billion shares outstanding, and the call option interest that's generating tens of millions of shares potentially locked in hedges strategies would not be a major factor to create a gamma squeeze. However, on a float of 80 million, this is a major factor. So what do you think of this? Check out the actual blog post and leave a comment and let me know what you think. So guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you've watched all the way through, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out a lot. Your likes are what helps a small channel like this grow. If you're new, hit the subscribe button and bell notification, follow me on Twitter, and I'll catch you in the next one.